Today we're going to discuss some things that every record collector should know on the sound of Safe and Sound, Texas. Welcome back. David Bianco back with you here at the sound of Safe and Sound, Texas. Today we're going to focus a bit on vinyl collecting. Some of the key points and some of the things you might consider as you go down the road of vinyl collecting. Those of us who have been doing it for a while, we've learned these things over years, and now it's time to share that. So one of the first areas has to do with grading. There's grading related to the physical record, the media, and then there's grading of the cover that it comes in. And the Goldmine standard, which I spoke of in a previous video, is actually the norm that's used to rate these. And without getting into the detail of that, the reality is that some people who are selling records, especially the resellers, people who are selling secondhand records, there's a variation on perspective of that. Some are conservative graders. In other words, it's going to be probably better than what they say it is, or definitely as good as. And then there are some that I call optimistic. They will say something is, let's say, a VG plus when it really barely is a VG. So they overgrade it. It's kind of like when people take in a used car and they always say, "Oh, my vehicle's a perfect vehicle. There's nothing wrong with it." And then, they go look at it and there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's not quite as perfect as you say. So really, you want to find these sellers who are ones who grade conservatively, so you actually get at or better than what you expected. One group that I know that I'm a part of is Second Chance Records, and we definitely, as a group, we do that. That's kind of a norm. We're very careful about that, and we're very careful about guaranteeing the quality of what you get. If you're not 100% satisfied, let us know, and we'll refund you and make an arrangement. So these are the kind of things that are very important. There are some auctions and things out there where the seller is very optimistic. And then once you get it, you are disappointed. And that's a bad situation. Then it becomes a little bit of a tug of war of opinion. And that's just takes a lot of the fun out of it. And it really is a situation you really want to stay away from. So these grading variations do exist, and people's perceptions do exist as well. And then there's the issue of, is it a visual grade versus a play grade? Because there are situations, frankly, where you can look at a record and it looks really great, but then when you play it, it's kind of noisy. And that's because it could be a poor pressing. It could be there's a lot of dirt in the groove, but you can't visually see it. It can be wear. It can be that it's been played a lot of times, not scratched, well handled, but over time the groove gets distorted. The groove gets shaved a bit by that diamond over time, especially if it's repeated plays over and over again. So you're not always going to know what you really have just visually. If someone says they play graded it and it's a VG plus, then that usually means that they've taken not only the time, but the effort to actually evaluate the record. And that's really important. So if you can get a play graded record, that usually is one that you can have more confidence in. And it's something to recognize that a seller that does that is serious about what they're doing, right? So the idea here is trusted sources, getting records from trusted sources. People, either whether it's in a store that's nearby and you've had really good luck when they say it's a VG plus, it's really a VG plus or better. If you've been disappointed, you'll probably continue to be disappointed because it's probably a reflection of the way they evaluate their records. Some places don't give you any sort of evaluation and you just have to look at it yourself. And then you want to understand about what their return policy is. Hey, if I bring this back in 7 days, can I get at least a dollar value refund in the sense that I can spend either get a full refund or spend the money here to buy something else? So it's always good to look at refund policies. The other thing that I want to mention is the value of the cover versus the vinyl itself. Um, I've kind of noticed on my albums, and we're going to talk about using outer sleeves, but that I didn't in the early days use outer sleeves. And so I have a fair amount of spine wear on some albums that I played a lot. Now, they were really well cared for. I used SoundGuard on them, which I talked about in a previous video. They're really excellent records, but the cover might have some ring wear on it, which comes from pressure on especially dark colored covers, and sliding in and out quite a bit in a very tight slot. Spine wear is just when you're pulling on it, and over time it just kind of breaks down. So the question is, what are you buying here? The cover or the vinyl, or you're really both? I mean, what matters to you the most? I mean, you can go find a good cover on a bad pressing and get it really cheap, and then find that really good pressing that maybe has a bad cover and just swap them out, and then just have one good cover and one good album. I've done that over time in certain cases. But the point is, understand what's really important and decide, that, because you do pay more for the better cover as well in most cases. Not that it's not relevant, but understand your own need and what matters to you as it comes to that, because there's no one size fits all answer for that. So you're looking for records. Maybe you're just going in a store and you're just flipping through just because you're in a store that has records and you want to look. And you find something, you say, boy, that seems like, it's a pretty good deal. I want $14 for this record, and you go look it up on Discogs and you go, oh, I can get it, for maybe 12 on Discogs, but then I got to pay shipping. So shipping and taxes locally, and okay, it's not much different. And so, the issue is, do you want the record? Do you or don't you want the record? I have a philosophy I call a bird in the hand. There have been times where I have had a bird in the hand and I thought I really would just wait for the two in the bush, and I didn't see that record again. And when I went back, it was gone. Or I didn't want to pay the price that was on Discogs. So think about the fact that when you find something, and especially if it's on a want list you have, in Discogs you can actually build a want list of things so that when you go into stores, you can quickly look at that list then and see, is there anything here that I really want? Because I've identified it as a want, not just an impulse buy. But the point is, think about it. Do you want to have to go through a transaction? What's the total cost of buying this? The time it takes. You've already, used some gas to go to a location, maybe. So I just kind of have to evaluate and value the whole situation. Can you take the record back easily if you're going to a local place? Whereas maybe on Discogs, it's going to be a little tougher. And I use Discogs as an example. Could be eBay, could be any buyer, any auction, any way of getting it besides physically touching it yourself. So when you're buying and when you're looking, just remember the term bird in the hand, because I think that is something that I think every collector has been bitten by in the past. So all vinyl needs cleaning. This is one that's sometimes one that gets a bit of a debate going, but the truth is, new vinyl needs it more than anything. I can tell you some of the dirtiest records I've found are ones that I take out of a jacket that are new represses. And, those little bits of vinyl get into the water, into the distilled water, and, you can see these, it's in the record somewhere. And so I would tell you that the records I have that I've had for many years that I cleaned and then I put SoundGuard on and that I play very occasionally, if I were to go clean those, nothing would basically come off of them. So you really do need to clean records when you get them when they're new. I'm not going to go into all the methods of cleaning. There's the simple way of doing it, and then there's the more expensive way of doing it. I'll get into that in another video. But the point is, whatever method is available to you, do clean those new records. Otherwise, your needle is going to be cleaning the grooves for you. Just remember that, especially if, and even after I play a record, I always clean my needle after I've played a record, just out of a habit. So remember that. It's very, very critical. We talked then about getting a clean record, so you should then use inner sleeves. Inner sleeves are these type of sleeves, and sometimes they're called MoFi sleeves. They make an anti-static sleeve. It's a rice paper type sleeve. And these are the ones that basically are used by most people to put records in after they've cleaned them. The inner sleeve that you get from the manufacturer, whether it's white paper or unless it's a rice paper like we're talking about, and even those I honestly replace, because if there's any junk from the manufacturer, it could have gotten into that sleeve. Anything that they use, even if it's a printed inner sleeve, I keep that, but I put the actual record then in one of these rice paper inner sleeves. And I'll be showing you what one looks like here. So those are very important to protect your investment. Similarly, outer sleeves to protect the outside of the record is very important to reduce the wear and tear on the cover that I spoke of earlier. So these are relatively inexpensive, cheaper if you buy in bulk of 50 or more, let's say. And it certainly does add value. Now, if it's a throwaway kind of album, one you don't care about, one really in not too great shape, then you can make a call. But pretty much everything I have that I'm keeping, I definitely want to treat that way. One last topic I want to cover is how do you organize your collection? Now, typically you do it by artist. Now, how do you do it by artist? Well, I traditionally had done it one way, and then once I started using Discogs, which is a database that you can build of your collection, discogs.com. There's also an app for iOS or for Android, and they have listed just about anything that's ever been put on vinyl is there, and you can then find what you have, select that copy, and then add it to your collection. And when you see the way it's sorted there, it is distinctly by first name. So that means first name of an artist. If you're looking for Elton John, it's under E, not J. If you're looking for Beatles, it's under B. Okay, and so Pink Floyd is not under F, it's under P. So it's always the beginning of the name of the person and or the group. So normally a lot of places would, by a person that's an artist, put it by their last name. But in the case of Discogs, they put it by first name. Again, you can organize it any way you want, but when I want to look at my list off of Discogs, which I export, and I want to kind of match off and go in sequence, it's much easier if I put it in the sequence where Don Henley is under D and not H, because as soon as I hit D on my list for Don Henley, it's not going to be in my actual albums if I've organized by his last name. Again, personal preference. There's no right or wrong answer, but it is something to think about because I've definitely had to reshuffle mine. So those are some thoughts on vinyl and different topics around it. Thought I'd share with you. Please give me some comments. Give me some ideas for future shows. Give me your inputs. Also like and subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. And until next time, this is David Bianco saying so long from the sound of Safe and Sound, Texas.